5 years ago in 1994, Eric Bischoff was attempting to turn around a company that was millions in the red on a yearly basis, signing the biggest name in business history in Hulk Hogan to be the driving force behind it. In 1995, Eric went to Ted Turner's office and suggested a primetime Monday night show to go head-to-head with Raw, presenting Nitro and forever changing the way weekly wrestling television was done. In 1996, Eric signed Hall & Nash in an invasion angle that led to the NWO revolutionizing the industry and starting its way to the peak period. In 1997, Eric's WCW dominated McMahon's company like nobody ever thought possible, making WCW the #1 company in the world. A year later in 1998, Eric oversaw WCW having the most profitable year for a company in history, with 1999 starting as hot as ever. A few short months later of declining numbers against the booming competition, burnout and constant clashes with talent and management, it was the end of the road for the man most responsible for what ended up being the biggest boom period in industry history, as Bischoff was removed from his position as president of WCW on September 9, leaving the future direction of the company in doubt, starting on this night with the first ever Nitro without Eric in charge. The first major move post-Bischoff era saw Ric Flair returning to WCW TV, without mentioning the name, cutting a promo on Eric saying that after years he's finally free, bringing out new champion Sting after turning heel on Hogan last night with Luger, after a decade-changing dynamic with the first ever Flair-Sting segment with Sting as a heel, setting up Hogan and Bret for the save and a tag match for the main event. Raw, coming in front of a sellout crowd from the announced home of WrestleMania 2000 in April from the Anaheim Pond, opened with one of the wildest starts in show history, back on its regular time slot for the first time since August 23, showing all the title contenders arriving to the building, with Triple H arriving in a police car with security after Austin's return segment on SmackDown. Linda walked to the ring with Patterson and Briscoe announcing a 5-way no-holds-barred match for the title shot at Unforgiven, along with Triple H defending the belt against Steve Austin in his return match from SummerSlam, in what will be Austin's first match back on Raw since mid-July, and first appearance in general in almost a month. Ending the segment with everyone coming out through the crowd to start a brawl in the ring. Raw jumped over 900,000 viewers in the second quarter for the Rock and Mankind promo, continuing to turn every interaction between them to must-see TV in another comedy interview, along with a Jarrett Open challenge to any woman in the build-up to the China match. In addition to WrestleMania returning to Anaheim after 4 years since the 1996 event, the company also announced plans for a big weekend in the city with a fan fest set to happen from March 31st to April 2nd. With Seed getting Goldberg chants in his segments and matches since the day he returned to the company, along with the streak angle and disrupting matches for a few months, Bill Goldberg came out unannounced to finally respond and set up the match, saying that the wait is over and he's challenging Seed for a match tonight, with Seed shown leaving the building saying that it's gonna be on his time, starting the build to the Havoc pay-per-view with the Goldberg promo bumping WCW around 600,000 viewers. Raw had Farouk vs. Devon in the build to the Dudleys' first pay-per-view match in the company against the Acolytes at Unforgiven, set to be the traditional welcoming committee match from the Acolytes, with both teams known for their legit aggressive style, especially hyped after the last time the Acolytes faced an ECW tag team with them shooting on Public Enemy in March, set to be one of the stiffest matches of the year and a test for the Dudleys. British Bulldog's first Raw appearance since before Montreal '97 was next, saying that he won every belt besides the world title and he's back in the company to do it before he retires, bringing out Bossman and then Al Snow with Pepper's family members, with Rottweilers running after Bossman through the crowd in the build to their pay-per-view cage match. WCW had Harlem Heat going over Knobbs and Morris after winning the tag belts for the 9th time at Fall Brawl, going against Shane being attacked by the Posse on Raw and running in during a Test vs. Joey match, with both Test and Shane driving after the Posse while also setting up the later segment as a storyline reason for Shane to not be in the building. WCW opened the show with a Benoit vs. Malenko match for a world title shot at Sting tonight, with Benoit going over. With Sting booked for the tag match, Rick Steiner came out instead challenging Benoit, with the Sting-Benoit match moved to next week, ending up with Benoit winning the TV title. Raw's peak quarter of the night came at the top of the hour for Steve Austin's promoted first TV match in over 2 months, ending up in an angle with Triple H getting him arrested after the big angle Thursday, with Austin running him over with a truck inside an ambulance, jumping around 700,000 viewers to a 6.4 rating, along with a Godfather vs. Chaz match. The WWF made a major crossover appearance at last night's Emmy Awards, with Rock, Austin, Chyna and Shane all at the event, and Rock and Austin doing a skit on stage during the main Emmys broadcast, which was the highest-rated show on television on the week. Introduced if it was up to the governor of Minnesota as the next president and vice president of the United States, Rock and Austin walked on stage in character with 3 accountants responsible for overseeing the voting, each doing his catchphrases, with the crowd popping big for the "It doesn't matter" line to close this segment. The last 3 weeks in the business saw major turnover of talent between all 3 top companies, after the Dudleys and Stevie Richards signed with the WWF. Reports were coming on ECW champion Taz about to reach a deal with the company, with head writer Vince Russo arranging and pushing for all 3 signings over the last few months, with the company looking to add more talent to the roster with the added 2 hours of prime-time television with SmackDown. With that happening, Raven quit WCW and returned to ECW TV on their 2nd episode on TNN, coming out as a surprise to a huge pop, winning the tag belts with Dreamer against the Dudleys to write them off the company in the highest-rated segment on the show so far with a 1.2 rating. Another change to the roster will see one of the most featured performers in the company, Ken Shamrock, returning to cage fighting with Unforgiven against Jericho, set to be his final match in some time. Doing an angle with Jericho inside a cage with a spoof of Gotch and Gracie. Bringing out Gotch Gracie, which ended up with Curtis Hughes under the mask. Raw's #1 contender 5-way ended up in a wild brawl with almost the entire roster out to contain the chaos. with all five taking out the entire referees roster to set up the Unforgiven main event with a special enforcer, as the original card for the show was set to change with the company working around injuries to Undertaker and Austin. Lead referee Earl Hebner was out after the entire crew was taken out, but went back in an angle with the referees going on strike. WCW jumped over 1 million viewers to peak the night with a 3.4 rating for the Hogan and Hart vs. Sting and Luger tag match, with Bret working his first televised match back, teaming with Hogan for the first time as a babyface team after teaming up as part of the NWO last August, going 10 minutes in the main event. A few minutes from 11 p.m., Triple H and Chyna were walking to the ring again for an unannounced segment which was then announced as a title match, calling out Linda to the ring after ordering Triple H to defend the belt after getting out of the Austin match earlier, telling her to cancel the match as Austin went to jail and forfeited his shot, ending up with her refusing and Hunter threatening her before the No Chance in Hell theme song started, with JR and King selling it as Shane coming out. But instead Vince walked out in a big surprise for his first televised appearance in almost 2 months, a few seconds from the top of the hour. The tag match ended up with Page coming out to give Luger a bat, hitting Bret in the face with Sting and Luger going over, establishing Sting as a heel. With the future direction of leadership and the product on and off screen is said to be known in the upcoming weeks. Vince said that he gave his word of not interfering in company business, but this is personal, telling Triple H that he made him and about to fight before Austin returned to a big pop to start the match, brawling all over ringside with Austin laying out Hunter to close the show, with the overrun for the Vince return and brawl picked up over 1.3 million viewers to a 7 rating, with both shows coming back to head-to-head competition, with WCW doing its highest number in the month with a 3.3 and Raw coming back after a 2-week break with a 6 overall rating. With Eric Bischoff now out of the business until further notice, Vince McMahon was back in full force Thursday night on a loaded show on UPN SmackDown, winning the WWF title from Triple H with Austin's help. The show, headlined by a big Star Power Rumble match with all 5 title challengers along with the Vince Hunter match, jumped big to draw SmackDown's highest rating to date with a 4.6 rating to head into tonight with big interest 6 days from Unforgiven. WCW loaded up the first hour, having a rare Goldberg match starting already at 8:25, going up against Brian Knobbs with the Cincinnati crowd mega hot for the match. After it, Goldberg took the microphone calling out "See for Halloween Havoc in 5 weeks" to set up the pay-per-view match. The big star power in the unopposed hour continued with Ric Flair coming out for a promo right after the Goldberg match, calling out Sting to bring out Benoit, who told Flair that Sting is already booked for tonight with them scheduled for a world title match later. The quarter, featuring the end of the Goldberg match along with the Flair promo, peaked at a 4.7 rating, WCW's highest rated segment during the first hour since May, with the first hour overall doing a 4.2 rating. Also the highest in 5 months. A few minutes from the top of the hour, Benoit and Sting made their entrances with the title match set for the crossover segment. going 15 minutes in a strong opener, ending up with Luger interfering to give Sting the win, with Flair, Page and Hogan all coming out post-match, setting up Flair vs Page for later in Flair's first TV match since losing the presidency to Sting 2 months ago. The Sting-Benoit title match maintained better than usual, doing a 3.6 rating against Raw's opening segment, WCW's highest first quarter since July, which will also be the peak of the night. Raw, coming off the surprise title change on SmackDown 4 days ago, opened with new champion Vince out to relinquish the belt, saying that he's prohibited from engaging in day-to-day business activities, announcing a six-pack challenge for the title in the Unforgiven main event Sunday. Steve Austin came out moments later saying that he should be in the match, with McMahon out of his position saying that he can't change company decisions, ending up with Austin reinstating Vince with the clause in the contract, making Austin the special enforcer in the match, with the winner facing Austin next. With Triple H and Shane getting involved to set up a tag match for tonight with Hunter and Chyna against Vince and Shane. Raw jumped over 900,000 viewers in the second quarter for Rock arriving to Houston's Compaq Center, meeting security guard Louise on her birthday, showing a rare different side, holding himself from saying his signature lines and singing the SmackDown Hotel song to her as a gift in a classic segment. Minutes later, Undertaker sent his crew to take out Mankind in the Boiler Room, with Rock making the save and walking away. Along with the Jericho vs Billy Gunn match also in the same quarter. With Undertaker working through injuries for the last few months, including a torn groin that made it difficult for him to wrestle a full match, with Show doing the bulk of the work in their tag matches lately, was set to take time off after this show and ended up taken out of the Unforgiven main event as a result, replaced by the returning Davey Boy Smith. Taker, who was doing arguably the best character work of his career with his performance as natural and close to his personality as at any other time in his run, will undergo surgery in hopes of being ready for a return between the Rumble in January to Mania in April. Dallas Page came out for a promo hyping his match with Flair set for the main event, while Raw had Michael Cole interviewing Mankind backstage, telling him to know his mouth and shut his role before Rock entered the frame, responding to Undertaker's comments on him talking trash, saying that he talks trash 24/7, doing a comedy impersonation of him cutting promos in his sleep. The all-time great Rock-Mankind interactions, which have been the highlight of TV over the last month in the program with Taker and Show, continue to dominate the shows, with them setting up a tag titles match against Show and Taker for later. Raw had several show-long angles, first with D'Lo hyping his match with Mark Henry for Unforgiven before Henry attacked him from behind and left the building, ending up with D'Lo driving after him to a club in Houston. Along with Vince and Shane preparing for the tag match, with Shane hyping Vince throughout the show. While WCW had Cena accepting the Goldberg challenge for the Havoc pay-per-view. Vince and Shane will not be the only McMahons wrestling on the show, as Stephanie made her in-ring debut teaming with Test against Jarrett and Deborah, with the build to the Jarrett-Chyna match heating up, with Jarrett turning on Deborah and getting over as a heel in this angle. Another first, we'll see the first ever Dudleys vs Hardys match, with the Acolytes on commentary for the match, playing off the intrigue of what will happen when they face another ECW team with a reputation, telling the Dudleys to ask Public Enemy what happened the last time an ECW tag team faced them, referring to them shooting on Public Enemy in their Heat match in March. With Bradshaw saying that there are 3 rules in this place: you're not drinking their beer, not messing with their rats, and not cutting a promo on the Acolytes. WCW opened the third hour with Eddie Guerrero and Perry Saturn going 8 minutes. With the promos of The Rock, Mankind vs Taker and Show feud going above the normal work style, with both cutting promos on each other gimmick. A notable exchange earlier saw Taker telling Rock to get his script writers to write him a eulogy after the match tonight. Rock, who took pride in his creativity and originality, and known for writing his own material to the point where co-workers who traveled with him on the roster were saying that he'll write notes of any material that he comes up with anywhere during the day, from car rides to restaurants, responded saying that obviously the millions know he writes all his material, and wrote something for Taker real fast, claiming to be from hell and is gonna get checked into the SmackDown hotel. The end of the Test Jarrett mixed tag, Rock's promo, and the tag titles Dark Side Rules match, with Rock and Mankind winning the tag titles, gained over 900,000 viewers to peak the night with a 6.7 rating. Hulk Hogan came out hyping his rematch with Sting, booked for the Havoc pay-per-view, along with next week's announced main event, with WCW returning to their home base in Atlanta for the first show in the new Phillips Arena. The company hyped a 6-man tag with a promoted Dream Team of Hogan, Hart and Flair going against Sting, Luger and Page. The build to the Unforgiven main event continued, with Taker ordering the group to go find Kane after turning on him in the tag match earlier. Rick Steiner came out for an interview with Gene, saying that he respects no one outside of this person, calling out brother Scott Steiner making his TV return after months out with injury. Scott said that when he left he was the US champ and the leader of the NWO, cutting a strong promo on Hulk Hogan, saying that he turned his TV on last week and saw Hogan wearing yellow and red, telling him that nobody leaves the NWO unless they kick him out, and he's coming after him soon. The referees going on strike angle continued, with all the matches on this show having different people, from Tom Pritchard to Steve Lombardi refereeing. Raw had footage from earlier today with Al Snow in a cemetery for Pepper's funeral, with the cameras showing shots of Bossman getting there later, in the final angle of the Wild Snow Bossman program before the Dog Cage match Sunday. Followed by a Bossman Holly hardcore match that saw Bossman take a brutal glass shot to the head, opening him up. WCW had Booker vs Canyon and then took 2 commercial breaks in a row before Flair attacked Page to start the match in a brawl going 6 minutes. Raw jumped around 700,000 viewers in the final quarter, with D'Lo finding Henry in a strip club in the build to their first match after almost 2 years on screen as part of the Nation and as a separate tag team, along with Triple H promo and the start of the 9-minute main event tag match, ending up with Vince getting locked in his room and Test coming out as Shane's partner. WCW in 3 minutes in the overrun, featuring the end of the Flair Page match along with a post-match angle, and in an unexplainable situation that almost seemed like a system error, featuring one of the top consistent TV draws in the business, and Flair with his first match in 2 months, dropped to an almost record-low 1.7 rating, among the lowest main event numbers in show history. Raw went 6 minutes in the overrun, picking up around 600,000 viewers to a 6.6 rating, and then gaining another 700,000 viewers, going unopposed to a 7.1 peak, ending up with Vince laying out Hunter with a chair to close the show. By September '99 the gap was almost unreachable for WCW. WWF were deep into their peak, breaking industry records on a monthly basis. No other show empathized it more than this night with one iconic, record-breaking segment. A few weeks prior to this show, Vince McMahon made the announcement that will change the business forever, the decision to sell stock and go public. Looking at every quarter rating of the shows head-to-head, who made the biggest difference, and how both companies countered each other. WCW built its first unopposed hour-on-a-show-long storyline involving Hogan and Sting. Sting injured Hogan, who was sent to the hospital, putting the 6-man main event in doubt. WWF, coming off the Unforgiven pay-per-view the night before, started the show with Vince announcing the main event of Rock challenging Triple H for the title. That comes after Rock had the title won, but Bulldog cost him the match. WCW had 2 major storylines for the night. Goldberg's feud with Sid continued, with Goldberg in his hometown from the new Phillips Arena planned something for Sid. The main event was supposed to be a big 6-man tag of Hogan, Bret, and Flair, going against Sting, Luger, and Page. WWF built its first hour on Mankind, planning a surprise for Rock, with him apologizing to Rock after turning on him in the match the night before. Along with Austin wanting answers from McMahon on when he gets his promised title shot. Vince announced the No Mercy '99 main event with Austin against the winner of tonight's match. In one of the greatest, most memorable segments in professional wrestling history, The Rock and Mick Foley were supposed to go around 10 to 15 minutes. Their segment, which was done completely on the spot with no planned verbiage, went around 25. Vince McMahon, watching the monitor backstage, was reportedly furious at the segment going over time. While standing near him was head writer Vince Russo, smiling from ear to ear, knowing that this is one of the greatest things ever produced in the industry. According to Mick Foley, the next day Rock and Foley went to check the numbers, and alongside their segment was an asterisk that said one thing: all-time record. Both went to a smiling Vince, who told them they can go as long as they want. The 8.4 rating was the highest rated segment in Monday Night War's history. The 1.6 rating for WCW was their all-time low record. The huge 6.8 rating points gap was the largest in head-to-head competition history. Rock, the biggest star in the industry, was starting to separate himself from the pack with weekly artistic showcases. With Hogan in the hospital, Bret Hart and Ric Flair agreed to a handicap match. Their match showed big growth going against the Raw main event of Rock and Triple H. Eventually paying off the two major storylines of the night. In the last few minutes of the show, Hogan came back from the hospital to get revenge on Sting, while Goldberg revealed his plan to destroy said rental car. Raw's main event of Rock and Triple drew a 7.0 overrun rating, the second biggest figure of the show. That means in 3 quarters, Rock grew his segments by more than 4 million viewers total, among the highest growth of all time head-to-head with WCW. The 6.8-3 gap was also a Monday Night Wars milestone, with Raw setting a new winning margin record.